You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
When I was teaching, I got to try out these tools on my students, and I would give them 10 minutes. Like, here, you got 10 minutes. Make this better. Do it. And they would write in the moment, and they were genius. And I realized it wasn't always just the fact that I'd given them a tool that was a good shortcut, but also that I'd only given them 10 minutes to do it. So they hadn't overthought it, overanalyzed it, overwritten it.
Joining me today is Pilar Alessandra. Pilar is the director of the popular writing program On the Page and author of The Coffee Break Screenwriter. She is a sought-after teacher and lecturer. She has traveled the world teaching screenwriting, pitching, and story analysis, and she also hosts her own podcast, aptly titled On the Page Podcast. Pilar, how are you?
I'm doing well, Dave. How about you?
Pretty good, thank you.
Cool.
It's a rainy day here in Philadelphia.
Is it? It's always sunny in California. I have to tell you, we have our problems, but it generally is sunny. I'm sorry.
I hear that a lot. Every person who lives out in California, whether it's LA or Burbank or Santa Monica, it's always bright and sunny out there.
But, when we sink into the ocean via earthquake, who cares how sunny it is at the time? So, it's got its pros and cons.
Well, hopefully that's not till, a couple of years from now.
Yeah.
So we can all enjoy that weather while it lasts.
Right, sure. Thanks for having me on your show, Dave. I really appreciate it. I'm a little bit nervous, I have to say.
Believe me, you should not be nervous.
I'm nervous. I'm on somebody else's podcast.
You're a world-renowned...
Only softball questions, please.
Okay. I will only ask you questions like, what's your favorite color? Who's your favorite Beatles member? Stuff like that.
All right. Red, Paul. Okay, I'm on it. Cool.
Well, that's the end of the questions I have for you. So it was nice talking to you, Pilar.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Pilar, the question I always ask everyone to begin with is basically about your background. So I wanted to ask you, how did you get started, and how did you get to be where you are today?
It was kind of a happy accident. I was kind of overeducated and underemployed, and then somebody asked me to read a script for a company that she was working at, and I thought, well, this is really fun. And then somebody said, hey, stupid, you can get paid for that. So I took the samples that I had, and I thought, oh, it'd be really cool to work for Steven Spielberg, because when you're young, you really don't know anything, and I was like, hey, I'll work for him. And surprisingly, they hired me off of the samples, and I really got to learn by reading and analyzing material for what was Amblin Entertainment at the time, and then when it became DreamWorks, I was senior story analyst over there, and then read for, a couple thousand other companies, and from that started to realize that there were certain things that were popping from scripts that made them really work, or certain things that made people put them down. And so I thought, well, instead of just being crusher of dreams, wouldn't it be cool to sort of figure out a way to make scripts better, to help writers with some of these issues? And so I developed some tools, and I started teaching them, and lo and behold, they worked. So I turned them into a book, and now I get to talk to you today. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, because you've traveled the world. I went onto your website, which On the Page, and I saw you actually have a banner up there. Looks to be, I think that's Vietnamese or Thai.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I got to teach in Vietnam about 3 years ago, and Beijing in April, and Warsaw, and in November I get to teach in Portugal and South Africa. So I'm very, very lucky.
So when you do these seminars, does everyone there sort of have to speak English, or is there an interpreter that sort of speaks after you say a sentence and that person would interpret?
That's a really good question. It really depends on the country. Like, for example, in Portugal, in Lisbon, everybody seemed to speak English, or at least pretended to. So I spoke in English. And by the end, I think they were very used to how I spoke, and I was used to how they were replying. So it got easier and easier. In Beijing, I had 2 translators, and sometimes got some puzzled looks because I think it wasn't only sort of speaking in English, but sometimes some of the references and things like that. But it's a challenge, but it always comes down to the fact that everybody really wants to write a strong story. They all come from a personal place. They all want some measure of success. So ultimately, I can sort of find this common ground, and the classes start to work, no matter what language it's in.
So, like, if you have like a joke built in, this is sometimes like a cultural barrier, or culture, like, where it gets lost in translation.
Absolutely. And I like to joke a lot during classes. So some things that really work in the United States just fall flat other places, and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that one, but oh well.
So, you've traveled the world, teaching screenwriting and pitching, and I wanted to start asking you about, some of the things that you've seen as you've been teaching these seminars. And one of the first things I want to ask you is, what do you see most screenwriters doing either wrong or right, as they try to start writing, maybe even like the first draft, as some of these screenwriters that start out, what are some of the things that they do wrong or right?
I think everybody has a tendency to write forward and get stuck in the middle. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think sometimes it's best to sort of go big picture, stand back, think about what story you're trying to tell, and think about working backwards. That if you thought about where do I want to land by the end of this pilot, or where does my character need to be by the end of this feature, I think that would help people a lot. So where I see people making mistakes sometimes is they micromanage and micromanage and micromanage only to get stuck in the middle because they hadn't thought big picture to begin with.
So do you think then that a lot of the problems start then with the concept?
Well, I don't know. I mean, as far as the concept, sometimes there might be an idea that isn't yet feature worthy in the fact that there isn't anything unique that's been added to it. And what will happen is a writer might find that out during the writing process and realize, wait, this isn't a big enough idea to explore, which is why I got stuck. So, yes, sometimes it is a concept problem. Yes, sometimes.
So once sometimes some of these writers, maybe even get a solid concept, do you think that they're just too quick to just start, immediately going into actually writing the thing instead of maybe either, writing a treatment or a beat sheet or something like that?
Well, I'm all for writing quickly, but I do think it's good to have just a modest plan as far as, okay, if my character needs to have solved this problem by this point and needs to sort of be at this place emotionally, what are the central beats I need to get him or her there? That's your plan. So yes, it's good to know those things so that you don't find yourself sort of backed into a corner, but you don't have to overwrite an outline. Some people will spend all their writing time on an outline, 25-page outline, and then when they actually go to write it, there's no wiggle room during the writing process, and they get stuck too. So yes, have a plan, but have a modest plan.
So then, so as sort of they start beginning that first draft, do you recommend, just sort of writing what's called the vomit draft and just getting something banged out as soon as possible?
I do. I wish there was a prettier expression for it, but yeah, in my classes, I teach people how to do a speed draft, and it's all writing just around the intention of the scene, so that once you nail the scene, you can move on, and you can go back and make it pretty or full of subtext or expand it in the rewrite process.
So then once, they've sort of done that first draft, do you ever just recommend to them, like, put away that first draft, put it away for at least like 2 to 3 weeks, and then maybe come back to it?
It really depends on what kind of person you are. I know that works for some people, and some people, when they're on a roll, just need to keep going. So that part, the psychological part of it, what writers need to do to sort of get themselves back in, that I can't address. But once they're in it, I can help them write it quickly or rewrite it efficiently.
It's funny, Pilar, because that's something that actually happened to me.
Oh, yeah?
I actually wrote a screenplay, and I'm like 6 or 7 drafts in, and I started to, thumb through it again. I'm like, all right, you know what? I think I'm in that right frame of mind to sort of, work this out. I got about halfway through, and I noticed a lot more problems than I thought I remembered. And I'm like, how the hell did I get back to this? Why am I not working on anything else? And I start getting, and then you just start getting frustrated, and it's just sort of like, it's almost like Stephen Pressfield calls resistance. I don't know if it's resistance or it's just like I just want to chuck this script out the window. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, because I have a lot of students that get to this place of like, okay, now I hate my script. All right, I just hate it. I think what you have to do then is sort of stand back and go, all right, getting back to the original logline, your original idea. What was it that turned you on about the idea? What kind of movie did you imagine when you first came up with it? Get that movie in your head, then go back to your script and look really hard at the places where that movie that's in your head should be. If it's not there, what could you do to make it happen? So it might be like, oh, you had this great scene in your head. Well, is it there? If not, put it in. If it is there, why isn't it exciting enough? Okay, that means you need an action rewrite. Oh, I thought people would be talking to each other in a more clever way. You need a dialogue rewrite. But that's what I would do. I would start with, what originally got you about your own idea? What was the movie or the TV show you saw in your head?
Now, and you mentioned a good point there, which is the log line. I was just talking to some people about this the other day, because he feels that the log line is so often overlooked, and some writers maybe even sort of half-ass their log line or not. I mean, is that something you see a lot of? Like maybe the log line, there isn't enough there. Maybe there, it doesn't tell enough of the story, or it doesn't create any conflict or tension. I mean, is that something you've seen?
Yes, and it's funny because like all of my classes, whether it's first draft, rewrite, pitch, always start with a log line, which can be such a pain in the ass for writers, because they're like, great, thanks, I stuffed all my genius into one sentence. But the reason for it is not as a shortcut for people listening like me. It's so that the writer can go back to what they originally intended for their project and to see in one sentence what's special about the project. So what I'm usually looking for is some kind of hook, in terms of, something that would get your attention in terms of, method or a new way to do something, or a different kind of relationship we've never seen before, or a what if. Looking for that, and also looking for some kind of emotion underneath. I use this on another show, but I'm going to use it on this, which would be like a log line for Ted. So if you had like a log line that said, a man has a magical talking teddy bear, that's all right. That's the hook. But if you add a grown man has trouble parting ways with his talking teddy bear, now you've got the hook, talking teddy bear, and you've got the emotion, trouble parting ways. So you can see the high concept, and you can see the character movie that comes through.
So, sometimes when students come to class, do they just sort of have like a log line that's sort of like, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, and, boy finds her again at the end? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, what I'm trying to say is it just something that you've almost seen before? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you sort of read the log line and like, hey, wait a minute, that was this movie, or wasn't that this movie? Is that something you've seen as well?
It's not so much that as I feel like it's there, but then I will try and get them to elevate one part of it. I go, okay, well, you told me that it's a bank robbery. I've seen bank robbery movies before. How does your character rob a bank? And once we get that method in there and we find out that that's a special thing, then we get that into the log line. And also that becomes more of a focus in the second act when they're actually writing. Another thing that people tend to do where they make a mistake with log lines is they log line their first act. So it's all set up. And then listening to it, I sometimes realize, like, wait, you're not going to spend your whole movie thinking about or trying or planning to. What happens when this actually takes place? That's their movie, and that's what they should be log lining.
So as you encourage your students to begin writing and actually maybe even sort of evolving their concept. Before I start, talking about your book, which is the Coffee Break Screenwriter, I wanted just to ask, is there any other screenwriting books that you've ever read personally that you've actually maybe have hit a chord with you?
Way back when I first started teaching, I liked Linda Aronson's book Screenwriting Updated. And the reason that I liked it was it dared to go off of the conventional wisdom at the time for three-act structure and looked at all kinds of different structures for nonlinear storytelling. And I really like the fact that it even tried to explore that. So that's a book that I think, dared to say we don't tell stories the same all the time. So I liked that book very much.
It's because, in reading your book, The Coffee Break Screenwriter, I noticed not only is it different than other books on the market, but it's also your presentation is also different, which is good. Because you actually present it, in the 10-minute lectures, and because it's in the title, that's Coffee Break Screenwriter. So at what point did you start to put this together? Saying, hey, I should just put this into a book form of all the past lectures that I've taught.
Well, what was cool was when I was teaching, I got to try out these tools on my students, and I would give them 10 minutes. Like, here, you got 10 minutes, make this better, do it, and they would write in the moment, and they were genius. And I realized it wasn't always just the fact that I'd given them a tool that was a good shortcut, but also that I'd only given them 10 minutes to do it, so they hadn't overthought it, overanalyzed it, overwritten it. So I think it's a combination of those two things. So yeah, after a while, I sort of tested enough of this stuff that it felt right to put them into a book. And I'm kind of psyched because I'm writing the second edition right now, and that's due on September 8th, which so I'm joining the world of people with deadlines. But I'm trying to update it so that it also includes TV and also expands maybe the web content a little bit as well.
So now that the deadline is slowly approaching, are you sort of going into of panic mode, like, oh my God, I got to get this done?
Hell yeah! You would think like Coffee Break Screenwriter teacher would be like, well, I'll just write parts of it 10 minutes at a time, But I'm just like everybody else, and sometimes I just lock myself in a room for a day, and I'm like just banging out pages and pages and pages and pages, because it's good to have the tools at your disposal so that when you can catch a free moment, you can do it. But I also tell writers, look, if you get a day of writing time and nobody's going to bother you for a little bit, spend the whole day, binge it out, get as many words on the page as you can. So I'm trying to do that as well.
So, you mentioned including TV in the second edition. Do you feel that TV and the web series? I mean, we see it on Amazon. Do you think that that is sort of this long form medium? That is sort of here to stay. And obviously, what I mean by that is TV has been around for years and years. I just mean do you feel that with all these different channels, do you feel that there will always be this outlet for all these for new writers to go as well as film, because right now they're it's considered to be film is down and TV and web series is up. Yeah, I'm sorry if I said that question was confusing.
No. I totally get what you're saying. And my answer is, God, I hope so. I mean, I hope that there's all of these platforms for writers. And, it seems like, we keep adding to it. Now we've got Amazon and Netflix, and it's great. There's so many places that are hungry for content. I hope, going with the, TV is up and film is down, I'm hoping that, I think that film is learning from TV now and realizing that, there are certain dark places it can go and it won't turn audiences away, or they can spend more time on a character moment and audiences really like that, or there are different kinds of audiences out there in terms of diversity or mature audiences. So I think film is studying TV and which is kind of funny to say because of what it used to be the other way, and I think that it will be as high quality as TV. That's my hope, at least. And yeah, I think that overall it's just good news for writers in general. There's just a lot of content to be generated.
Yes, very true. Because every time I turn around, I swear someone else is coming into the fold. Because there was a rumor, and I don't know how true this is, but that Walmart was actually about getting into it because they own Vudu, and they were thinking about getting into the fold of creating original content.
But you know what? Whatever. Anybody who wants to go for it, because there may be niche production companies, there may be niche audiences, there may be niche writers, but the idea is to get writers employed as much as possible, to get them working as much as possible, and they have to find the production company that works for their material, and the more there are out there, the more possible that will be.
And it kind of writes itself too, because you could definitely see that, a Walmart-centric show via a Walmart channel. That is something that I could see, Walmart maybe having an idea for, sort of like almost like a parody of itself. But it would be interesting if they actually did join the fold. But I agree, Pilar. The more channels and the more opportunities there are going to be for writers. So I definitely agree with that. Just continue, talking about this. We were mentioning before about you writing and just allowing free writing. This is also a question that was asked, but I'm just gonna I'll ask it now. Is do you ever find a point in when you're writing, or when you see a student writing, that a screenplay is finished, but you just never know when it's finished? Do you know if you know what I mean?
I think that happens with my writers all the time. I have my students and clients. Sometimes, there are some students and clients who hate rewriting, never rewrite, and their writing suffers for it. But then there are some students and clients who over-rewrite. They're constantly chasing notes. They'll give it to their mother, and they'll write the draft to please her. They'll give it to somebody like me. They'll write the draft to please somebody like me. They'll give it to somebody else, and they'll just keep chasing these notes and forgetting what their original intention was, and it becomes a case of too many cooks, too much salt in the soup, and then by the time that a producer is actually interested, they're out of steam. They don't have any more rewrites left in them. So what I would say is, once you've rewritten it to the point where it feels like the project you wanted to write, it meets your basic intentions, get it out in the world, kick it out of the nest, because a producer is going to pay you to do those rewrites. So I guess my answer to that question is, go with your gut. If you feel it really is ready, it probably is. And you certainly have my permission to put it out in the world and see what happens. Another question that came in, but I'll ask it now because I think it's relevant, is the question about script consultants. Mm-hmm. And, there are a lot of script consultants out there. I'm not asking this question verbatim. I'm just going to sort of point it out. But, there's a lot of script consultants out there. Do you feel that
a lot of them have like maybe I don't want to say value, but do you think a lot of most of those screenwriting consultants have more experience than others in terms of certain projects, and that maybe we should be there shouldn't be like a sort of like one all. There should always be like a certain genre or niche that you're looking for, if you know what I mean?
I don't know. I can't speak for other script consultants. I really can't. I am one of those people who kind of keeps her head down and does her work and tries to do it well, so that people feel comfortable coming to me and that they come back for more. I don't believe that I personally would never just specialize in one genre. I think a good consultant is somebody who loves film in general and loves TV in general, and even if they're not, let's say, super fans of a specific genre, can get into the head of a super fan. So, for example, if, let's say I wouldn't go out and run to the first superhero movie, I should be up on my superhero movies enough to know what a fan is going to expect from that genre so that I can get inside of that fan's head and read that script with that sensibility in mind, while also keeping in mind the fact that as somebody who is a different kind of audience, I'm also looking for, a different, some character meat and some emotion in it as well. But no, I don't think that a consultant should just specialize in one kind of genre.
So, I keep mentioning all the fan questions that came in. So, let me just start. If you don't mind, Pilar, do you mind if I ask you some questions from them?
Sure.
I know I keep referencing them, and it's like might as well just get to them, right?
Hey, fans, thank you very much for asking questions. Appreciate it.
No, Twitter is the best tool for this, but oftentimes I'll just I'll send out like an email or something, and they will slowly funnel in from all different like sources, which I end up going like, all right, let me see if I can find the best ones, because I don't want to always ask questions that may have been answered before, or maybe ones that I'm going to come up in conversation. But the one question that I just wanted to ask is that came in, and I thought that it would be good to start with is how do you know if you have any talent?
Oh my God! How do you know if you have any talent? Man, that's a tough question. Wow. Boy, I'm not a real new agey kind of person, but and I hate to give an answer like this, but you gotta believe in yourself. I mean, you gotta feel it when you're writing. I will tell you one stage that writers do get, the people that I've been working with for a long time, and I feel the transition from somebody who's really working at this to somebody who just has it, and it's an effortlessness. If, as you're writing, you start to get into a mode where there's this effortlessness, you probably got some serious talent. So, but it takes a while sometimes to get there. You have to struggle a little bit and learn the form and make a lot of mistakes, but eventually it starts to click in and that flow happens, and I bet you're pretty talented if you're there.
So, like somebody like that, I think whenever you ask something like that, I think somebody could easily get burnt out, if you know what I mean? Like somebody who maybe wrote a lot of first drafts or a lot of treatments, and they just end up, sort of getting in a rut, if you know what I mean, Pilar.
Yeah. What I would say to that is start watching things. Start watching things and enjoying them and asking yourself, why did that line make you laugh? Why did that moment affect you? Start becoming start binging on TV shows and watch movies that are by your favorite writer and start studying your craft that way, like as an audience member. And that will get you back in, get your mojo back, because suddenly I think you'll be in a place where you want to reflect that kind of a voice. And I bet if you go back to your writing, you'll start to feel like, oh yeah, okay, it's coming more easy to me. And when all else fails, have a beer or an ice cream sundae or something. Give yourself a break. What I do.
I was attending a seminar a couple of years ago, and the instructor there actually, he recommended Save the Cat. And he said, what he said with Save the Cat was this. He said, even if you write something using Save the Cat, and it might be something that we've seen before, he's like, at least you're creating something and you can evolve it from there. But he gave the analogy of creating music. And he said, if I give you a guitar, or if you want to learn guitar or drums, you'll pick like a popular song that, everyone knows, and you're going to learn those chords because you want to play that song. But eventually you want to start making your own stuff. I don't know, I don't know if you've read Save the Cat, but I don't know what you may have thought about that in terms of just seeing just getting something out there.
I don't know if I want to address Save the Cat in particular, because I think all screenwriting books have a little something to offer, and I think all screenwriting books, and then I'm throwing mine into the mix here. Also, you should tread lightly. Don't follow anyone's formula. But I do agree with what the writer-teacher said about, place it on a familiar structure if that makes it easy for you, and then mix it up a little bit, which is kind of what I'm saying with watching things. If there's a certain kind of rhythm, set of beats, structure that starts to work for you, you can then start replicating that a little bit and then turn it into your own. But I would be wary of following anybody's structural formula to the letter. That whole, this has to happen on this page, this has to happen on that page. If you're chasing that in your first draft, you're going to have a formulaic script. So you might want to use those kind of things to sort of just check in and see if you're keeping yourself on course after you've written your first draft, or get sort of a general knowledge of it, push the book aside and do your own thing, and let the beats come to you. I don't know if I made sense with that answer.
No, I think you made perfect sense. And just one of the follow-up questions that came in, and I think it's really pertinent to what we're discussing is, basically is finding your own voice. And is there? And I'm just paraphrasing this, but is there a way of developing your own voice through writing that can help your script stand out?
Well, I think that when people are talking about, your own voice, it's such a general term, right? Like, what does that mean? And I think what it tends to mean is do you feel like there's some kind of authenticity in the character? And that doesn't mean that they're believable. It means that you've committed to them, that person isn't apologetic on the page, that you're not sort of just having a character who sounds like a movie character, or a character who says the thing that's going to make them likable to the audience. You want a character who has a unique personality, who does the unexpected. And when you have characters like that, then that starts showing your writing voice, that your characters are committing and so are you. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Also tonally, to set a certain tone or mood, and again, to be okay with it, not try and go middle of the road with anything. That's where your specific voice starts to come through.
And that's really good advice. And I think that is something that a lot of writers, period, struggle with, is finding their own voice. Because I know it's something I struggle with as well. Because you start to write something, and you're like, wait a minute, this is a movie I just saw the other night, or this is something that and you sort of, you know what I mean, like that. You sort of maybe do it subconsciously, but then you sort of want to move into finding the story told through your point of view. Through your point of view is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I do see that a lot. I have to say, I read things that are just neat as a pin and really well written, and I realize, no, every character is a movie character. they've brought nothing new to that character's voice. So, something to be thinking about is, let's say you're writing a mob movie, okay? And suddenly, all of your characters sound like Michael Corleone, okay? So well, maybe they should be sounding like your third grade teacher instead. What would your mobster sound like if he sounded like your third grade teacher? Okay, now that's a different take on a mobster. And yet, certain third grade teachers can be, pretty mobster-like. So it's that kind of thing to sort of keep that in check. Is this just a movie, somebody else's movie in your head? I'm glad you're aware of that. That means that in your rewrite you're not going to do that.
And my rewrites are just tons and tons of red pen and notes and Post-its, and it's like, wow. It looks like the journal from the movie Seven. Remember those journals the guy had? And the final question I have, that came in from my Twitter question was, do you often watch shows or movies and often say to yourself, "What the hell were they thinking?"
I have been told by my family that I'm a little tough to watch stuff with because I leave it going, why did the writer make this choice at 45 minutes in? They should have added this beat where such and such. So yeah, I tend to overanalyze in terms of story a little bit, but I'm also somebody who is an easy laugh and will fall for a scare and kind of gets emotionally invested very, very quickly, which is why I usually tell my clients, if you can't make me laugh, if you can't scare me, something's wrong, because I'm the easiest audience you're going to get. So yeah, I can emotionally invest pretty easily.
I know sometimes when I watch movies, too, I can pick up on certain things. And I'm thinking back in my mind, I'm like, oh, he's not really dead. Or, oh, he's a double agent. Or, she's going to do this. Or, stuff like that.
But aren't you so psyched when you haven't been thinking like that, where you're really genuinely surprised? That's the best. As somebody who analyzes to suddenly go, I did not see that coming, that's a great script or that's a great movie.
Yes, and there's a movie out now called The Gift that I keep hearing so much about, and I don't even know what it's about, and maybe it's better I just go in cold, but a couple of friends of mine who are very hard to please, even they were raving about it.
Oh, cool. All right, I'm going to go see it too. You want to, I'll see it, you see it, and then we'll compare notes about it and see what we think. Sound good?
All right, sound good.
All right.
Because we live on opposite sides of the country, so... So yeah, I hear it's a mixture of Old Boy and something else. I forget what he told me, but I mean I love the Korean version of Old Boy. I don't know if you've seen it, but I thought it was phenomenal. And Spike Lee's remake I didn't like so much, but to each his own.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Old Boy here. Old Boy? Yeah,
Old Boy was the movie. It's a Korean movie, and it starts off with this guy getting drunk in a bar, and he and his work colleague go out to a payphone outside the bar, and it's his daughter's birthday, and they're talking on the phone. Well, the colleague goes to just turns his back for a second, and he turns around, and the guy's gone, and the next thing we know, he's been blindfolded and he's being thrown into this room, and that's it. And he doesn't know why he's there. No one ever comes in to talk to him. Every single day, he gets a meal, and then he's like, please, why am I here? Somebody talk to me, and nobody says anything to him, and he has a TV to watch, and he slowly starts going insane, yeah, the movie takes off from there. So have you ever seen Old Boy?
No. So I love movies like that too, and I'm a Spike Lee fan as well. I love movies that are sort of, make you feel claustrophobic, that are in one place, that have to deal with just one set or limited characters. That's such a challenge, and it's so cool to watch movies like that and see okay, how do they keep things twisting? I'm watching. I'm in. Now I have to watch 2 movies. Thanks a lot.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, and I've watched Old Boy.
Yeah, Old Boy. It was a Korean movie first, and then Spike Lee's did a remake of that. They're kind of similar. in the structure of the movie, but there is a difference in the ending, and they eventually Old Boy is a movie where if you just go in as sort of cold, I think you'll enjoy it even more. So definitely check that out. It was on Netflix for a while, and I'm not sure if it still is though.
Deal. Either way, I'm in. Okay. Thank you. Thanks. I love recommendations. So bring them on.
Oh, I'm glad to help. I'm a huge. As you know, I'm a huge movie head. So I'm always on the lookout for interesting movies. So Pilar, we've been talking for about 35, 40 minutes now. So in closing, is there anything you want to sort of add to this conversation, or any final thoughts you have, just to sort of put a period at the end of the sentence?
Well, if it's okay, you know how we talked about sort of working backwards?
Mm-hmm.
If people want to email me, I'll send them this little working backwards worksheet I have. That might help out a little bit. So they can definitely email me. Can I give you my email?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, it's inquire, INQUIRE, at onthepage.tv, or Pilar at onthepage.tv, PILAR at onthepage.tv.
Cool. And I'll also link to that in the show notes as well, everyone. Yeah. And Pilar, where can people find you out online?
So it's onthepage.tv basically has all of my live classes in Los Angeles. There's also some online content. I recorded some classes a couple summers ago, and I've recorded more this year that will be up online. They aren't yet, but they will, including TV and writing the female-driven screenplay. So that's also on the page.tv. And also there's a link to the podcast on the page and the book and all that stuff. So that's where they should go.
Yes, Pilar has an awesome podcast that I actually subscribe to, and she has some very cool guests on. And
I've been lately there've been some real good ones. Right, there was Dave Nutter. He was the guy who directed the Red Wedding episode for Game of Thrones and the finale, and he's directed Sopranos and ER and just everything pretty much. That one was really great. I was shaking in my boots for that one.
Yeah, and see, you have the benefit of living out, in LA, and you do this all face to face. Because in Philadelphia, I'm not here in Philly, so everything's over Skype or over the phone or what have you. So I couldn't I think that adds something to your podcast too, doing the face to face, or any podcast really. But like Mark Maron's podcast, everything's face to face. I think that does help with the conversation, because sometimes I'll make a joke on the podcast, and the person in their head's like, "What?" They can't see me smiling or whatever. So, but yeah, definitely, I will link to all that in the show notes, and so everyone all you have to do is look in the show notes and click on that. Pilar,
yeah.
I want to say thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for asking me, Dave. It was a pleasure, really.
Oh, I thank you very much. I know some of my questions were a bit confusing.
No, not at all. Not at all. And they were great questions written in by your fans, too. Thanks for that.
Thank you for to everyone out there who asked some questions. I really try to make this as interactive as possible. Ever, sometimes people will shoot me an email, or maybe they'll even send me, even Facebook or Twitter or what have you. I try to get everyone, a heads up of who's coming on the podcast as often as possible. Sometimes I just forget, though, because there's so much other stuff going on. It's just I didn't give a schedule out. But everyone, you can find me at davebullis.com. Twitter, it's at Dave_Bullis. And again, if you want to contact me, just go to my website and there's a contact page, and that all goes directly to me. Pilar, I want to say thank you very much. And please, the door's always open for you to come back anytime you'd like.
Well, we have to talk about the gift. We have to talk about Old Boy. So, yeah, that would be great.
Yes, exactly.
I'd love to talk more.
Yeah, and we have to talk about any other movies, too, we see in between there, in there as well.
Deal. Okay, thanks, Dave.
Anytime, bud. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Find Dave at davebullis.com. Please make sure to subscribe and share the podcast.